I think it's so interesting that if I don't know what y'all know about strike contracts. So hospitals, workers comp is probably super duper interesting. So people go on strike because they're not getting paid enough, right? Logical. They protest. They file claims. They want a better life. First off, nobody gets paid their worth. Absolutely nobody gets paid their worth unless you own your own business. Then you're able to say, my worth is this and that kind of situation. But so these companies will pay their workers not good at all. Then they'll strike. Then the strike happens, and workers comp and whatnot. That's going to be a strike agreement with the government or with their local government and with the hospital and with the workers compensation or with the workers whatever, right? But they will pay other people in that same profession crazy money. I'm on a website and it's looking at strike contracts, right? Okay, there's a strike for social workers, right? I'm gonna. How much do social workers make? Social workers salary. The average social worker makes like $32 an hour, $29 an hour. It says top 10% of this career earn 78K a year, right? This website, where people look for jobs. They're doing strike contracts for social workers right now for a weekly pay of 10 grand. It's 60 hours a week, bruh. Just do some quick math, bruh. It says 10 grand. This is obviously minus taxes. Divided by 60 hours. They're making $166 per hour. What the fuck? They're making $166 an hour when the average social worker ends up making 29, $32. This is in Cali, so maybe they make $50. Maybe they make less. Maybe they make more. In Texas, I think it's like 28 to 40 something, unless you're working at some crazy place, right? But these strike contracts, you're getting paid so much more. Like, yeah, damn near 5 times the average pay. Literally 5 point something times the average pay. Nobody gets paid their worth. Nobody does. But also, like, it's even in that, like, how am I okay? Not even how am I. Am I okay with a certain amount of money? And will this be able to afford me the lifestyle I want? That's actually just a question that we should all ask ourselves. And I'm asking myself more and more out of college and whatnot. It's really like, how much am I willing to sacrifice? How much am I saying that I'm worth? And will this get me the lifestyle I want? Right? Teachers get paid horrible, no matter what country you are, unless you are a private teacher. Private school teachers get paid okay, I guess, but even the concept of a livable wage is even questionable because technically, technically a livable wage is probably 30K. Um, yeah, let's say your rent is 1,400 a month times 12 months. Technically, a livable wage is probably like 30K. Technically, 1,400 a month, right? This is assuming you have no bills, no debt whatsoever. You pay your rent, you pay your groceries, and you have X amount of money for to do whatever the hell you want to do with your life. Not hell, but you know what I mean. Crazy. Even if you make 40K, find a place that's the average teacher makes like I think 45K a year. Yeah, 45K a year divided by 12. That's 3K a month. Let's say 1,700 of that. Minus tax and whatnot. You're making probably low 30Ks. 1,000. Let's say 1,700 that goes to rent and food. Or people have car insurance. But all the bills you have, like, it is not worth it whatsoever, dog. most jobs depends on where what your bills are financially, but like if you're making less than 55K, it's horrible. Like for context, I make way less than that. But dog, that is horrible. Then it's like, okay, what am I willing to get out of that? Because if it's unlivable, then I have to do stuff to get out of that. Then it's like, even in this economy, finding a job is so hard. With a bachelor's degree, they want you to have experience, right? You go to college so you can get internships. So internships show that you have experience, so you can get a job, depending on your field, right? Um, Unless have, I mean, it just depends on each individual. Like it's so subjective and it's so nuanced. Like I have a friend who works a really great job. Didn't graduate college, but he was doing all these crazy stuff beforehand. I have another friend, graduated college. My roommate, graduated master's, everything, still looking for a job. Then I have friends who graduated looking for a job. I have friends with jobs. It's all this bucket. It's about knowing the right people. It's about doing the right things, right? Obviously, there's careers where you're gonna have a job, but even that quality of your work is gonna be different. I know the average nurse makes like $25 an hour starting off. Then most nurses make around $36 an hour. Even with a, even with a, even with masters, nursing, it's 100K. If you have kids and let's say you live in a mortgage that's 100K, is technically like 8K a month. Let's say you have a mortgage of, 2 grand or whatever. 2 grand. People have bills though. All depending on how much money you make. If you don't have bills, you're chilling. But if you have bills, I think in this life there is taxes, there is bills, there is death, there's happiness, there's friendship. If you do have bills, which you will, so much you gotta pay. You gotta be able to afford it. And you don't want to just live a life where you're just living to pay bills. Yeah, you gotta make more money than that. Then you also want freedoms, right? You want the freedom of having a home. You want the freedom of not thinking about. I would hope not thinking of. I want the freedom of not thinking about what food I'm gonna eat. I want the freedom of like, damn, when I swipe this card, is my buying gas is that gonna irk me? And that's like the stuff you actually have to think about. But we don't think about. I mean, I'm saying I didn't think about this enough, but I am thinking about it a lot. I did think about it. You just try to make the decisions, right? This is my if I do the things that I needed to do. So go through med school, 10 years. The minimum I'm gonna make is like 300K as a doctor. If I do something else, it is a lot harder to get to that 300K. It's just their reality. Like, as a teacher, making 300K is damn near impossible. Janitor, damn near impossible. So it's just like the levels of it. Yeah. Nobody's gonna get paid their worth, but you get to create your work and define how much you're worth by what you do, who you are, and the value. The more value you bring, the more you get paid. And the crazy thing is, like, the educational system doesn't see raising up children the way they should become as much value as it is saving their life. But then, like, the entertainment industry says that streamers, being able to run ads, streamers make, high level streamers, we're talking about like the 0.1%. And we're always talking about the 0.1%, we're never talking about the average. The 0.1% makes millions a month. Athletes make did the math of who was that guy? Bills quarterback makes 160K an hour, technically, because of his contract. Insane. Like, most CEOs technically make $1,000 plus an hour. But when a job has, it's like, okay, you make let's say the job says that you make 400. Okay, let's be realistic. So yeah, let's say the job says you make 5 million plus bonuses. Let's say you make 3.5 million plus bonuses, and that's base. But it also tells you to you're not working 40 hours a week. If you get a call at 4, whatever, you're gonna have to, yeah, crazy. Nobody gets paid their worth, but you have to create your own worth, and you have to define what your worth is. And when you define that, and you have to have a reputation that shows that you're worth that, you're able to do that. I met a guy who said that he does consulting for like C-suite executives with companies, and his standard rate is like 3K an hour. Dog. And like these are just numbers and concepts to me, but they're not. They have to be more than that. One of my friends does great, really, really good, but it's because of how much he works. He's like 38K a month. He works a brick ton. But it's like finding that thing that you're able to create value and bring value to other people and get paid. And that's how like you actually get paid more money. Like technically, these YouTube videos have value, but they don't really have value to anybody. That's why I don't make any money. Until usefulness is actually how people get paid and how value is determined. If you want to make lots of money, you have to prove that you're useful and that you add value. That's really all it is.